The dream that was built. Elena Martinez stood at the edge of her vineyard, watching the morning sun paint the grapevines in shades of gold. At 28 years old, she had everything she had ever dreamed of. The Martinez family vineyard stretched across 50 acres of the most beautiful land in Napa Valley. Her grandfather had planted the first vine 60 years ago, and now Elena had turned it into one of the most successful wineries in California. The sweet smell of ripening grapes filled the air. Workers moved between the rows, checking each vine with care. Elena smiled as she watched them. This vineyard was not just her business. It was her heart, her soul, and her family's legacy. "Beautiful morning, isn't it?" a voice said behind her. Elena turned to see Marcus Wellington, her fiancé of 2 years. He was tall and handsome, with perfectly styled blonde hair and a smile that had once made her heart race. Marcus wrapped his arms around her waist and kissed her cheek. "The most beautiful," Elena replied, leaning into his embrace. "Can you believe in 3 months we'll be married right here among these vines?" Marcus's smile seemed to flicker for just a moment, but Elena didn't notice. She was too busy imagining their wedding day, surrounded by family, friends, and the vines that meant everything to her. The perfect partnership. Later that morning, Elena walked into her office building at the edge of the vineyard. Her business partner Victoria Chun was already there, sitting at the conference table with papers spread everywhere. Victoria had been Elena's best friend since college. They had studied business together, dreamed together, and 5 years ago, Victoria had invested money to help expand the vineyard. Now Victoria owned 30% of the business, while Elena owned 70%. "Good morning, partner," Victoria said, looking up with a bright smile. "I've been going over the numbers for the new distribution deal. It's even better than we thought." Elena sat down and looked at the papers. The vineyard was growing fast. They had just signed deals with restaurants and wine shops across the country. Money was flowing in and the future looked bright. "This is amazing, Victoria," Elena said, feeling grateful. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." Victoria's smile seemed strange, almost sad. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" "The best is yet to come," Elena said, not knowing how wrong she was. The discovery. That evening, Elena decided to surprise Marcus at his apartment in the city. He had been staying there more often lately, saying he needed to focus on his real estate business. Elena missed him and wanted to remind him of the love they shared. She bought his favorite wine from the vineyard and drove to his apartment. Using the key he had given her, she quietly opened the door. She wanted to surprise him, but Elena was the one who got surprised. She heard voices from the bedroom. Laughter. A woman's voice she recognized. Her heart began to pound as she walked closer. The bedroom door was slightly open. What Elena saw made her world collapse. Marcus was in bed with Victoria, her business partner, her best friend, the woman she trusted with everything. Elena's hand trembled, and she dropped the wine bottle. It crashed on the floor, breaking into pieces. The sound made Marcus and Victoria jump apart. "Elena!" Marcus shouted, grabbing a sheet. "This isn't what it looks like." "Really?" Elena's voice was cold and sharp. "Because it looks like my fiancé is sleeping with my business partner." Victoria wrapped herself in a robe, her face showing shame but also something else. Defiance. "Elena, I can explain." "Explain." Elena felt tears burning her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "How long? How long has this been going on?" Marcus and Victoria exchanged a look. That look told Elena everything. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a one-time thing. This had been happening for a long time. 8 months, Marcus finally admitted, his voice cold. "And honestly, Elena, I'm glad you finally know." The conspiracy revealed. Elena felt like she couldn't breathe. 8 months? "We've been planning our wedding." "A wedding that was never going to happen," Victoria interrupted. She stood up and her whole attitude changed. The guilty friend was gone, replaced by someone Elena didn't recognize. "Did you really think Marcus loved you? He loves your vineyard. He loves your money. And so do I." Elena stepped backward, her mind trying to understand. "What are you talking about?" Marcus got out of bed and walked toward her. "Your precious vineyard, Elena. It's worth millions now. And we're going to take it." "You can't," Elena said, her voice shaking. It's mine. My family's legacy. Actually, Victoria said, pulling out papers from her briefcase, I own 30%. And when Marcus marries you, he'll own 50% of your 70%. That gives us control. Majority ownership. But I would never sign papers giving him that much, Elena protested. Marcus laughed. You already did, darling. Remember those documents you signed last month? The ones I said were for tax purposes? You really should read things more carefully before you sign them. Elena felt sick. She had trusted Marcus completely. She had signed papers he gave her without even reading them because she believed he loved her. And even better, Victoria continued, we've found a buyer. A big corporation wants your land. They'll pay $20 million. Marcus and I will split the money and disappear. You'll get your small share, of course. After taxes and fees, maybe $2 million. Enough to survive, but not enough to rebuild. The fire that changed everything. Elena ran out of the apartment, tears finally falling down her face. She drove back to the vineyard, her hands shaking on the wheel. Everything she had believed was a lie. The man she loved didn't exist. The friend she trusted had betrayed her. When she got home, she immediately called her lawyer. But it was late evening, and she could only leave a message. She would have to wait until morning to figure out what to do. Elena couldn't sleep. She walked through the vineyard in the dark, touching the vines, remembering her grandfather teaching her to care for them. She wouldn't let Marcus and Victoria take this away from her. She would fight. At 2 a.m, Elena was in her house when she heard the alarms. Smoke detectors screaming. She ran outside and saw orange flames rising from the main storage building. The building where they kept equipment, supplies, and barrels of aging wine worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. No! Elena screamed, calling 911. Fire trucks arrived and firefighters worked for hours to control the blaze. By morning, the storage building was destroyed. 20% of her vineyard had also burned. The vines turned to black ash. Elena stood watching the smoke rise, her face covered in soot and tears. A firefighter approached her. He was tall, with dark hair and kind brown eyes that seemed to understand suffering. I'm Captain Diego Reyes, he said gently. I'm so sorry for your loss. Do you know how the fire started? Elena shook her head. I don't know. Everything was fine last night. Diego looked at the burned building carefully. Ms. Martinez, I've been doing this for 15 years. I need to be honest with you. This fire doesn't look accidental. What do you mean? Elena asked, though part of her already knew. I mean, someone might have started it on purpose, Diego said. We'll investigate, but you should think about anyone who might want to hurt you or your business. Elena's mind immediately went to Marcus and Victoria. Could they have done this? Would they really go that far? The mysterious firefighter. Over the next week, Diego came to the vineyard several times to investigate. Each time Elena found herself watching him. There was something about him that was different from other men she had known. He was genuine, kind, and he looked at her like she was a real person, not just a business opportunity. Captain Reyes, Elena said one afternoon as he was examining the burned area. Can I ask you something personal? Diego, he corrected with a small smile. And yes, you can ask. You seem to understand what I'm going through. Like you've experienced loss before. Diego was quiet for a moment. 5 years ago, there was a fire at my family's restaurant. My parents and younger sister were inside. They didn't make it out. Elena gasped. I'm so sorry. The fire was ruled accidental, Diego continued, his voice tight with old pain. But I never believed it. My father had received threats from a business competitor. The police investigated but found no proof. I became a firefighter because I couldn't save my family, but maybe I could save someone else's. Elena understood his pain. They were both people who had lost something precious to fire. I found something, Diego said, showing her a piece of metal. This is part of a timer device. Someone definitely set this fire intentionally. And they knew what they were doing. Elena's phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. She opened it and went pale. What's wrong? Diego asked. Elena showed him the message. It read, This is just the beginning. Sell the vineyard or more will burn. You've been warned. The decision to fight. That night, Elena sat in her house surrounded by legal papers. Her lawyer had reviewed the documents she signed. The news was bad. Marcus legally owned a large portion of her vineyard. Victoria's 30% combined with Marcus's share gave them control. But Elena wasn't going to give up. Her grandfather's face appeared in her memory, teaching her to never surrender. Diego knocked on her door around 8 that evening. "I hope I'm not bothering you," he said. "I wanted to check if you were okay." Elena invited him in. She made coffee and they sat at her kitchen table. "Why are you helping me?" Elena asked. "The fire investigation is official now. You don't have to keep coming here." Diego looked at his coffee cup. "Because I see someone fighting for what matters. Because I see someone who won't let evil people win. And because..." He looked up at her. "Because I think you're the strongest person I've met in a long time." Elena felt something warm spread through her chest. It wasn't the romantic love she had felt for Marcus. This was different. Deeper. Real. "I'm going to fight them," Elena said firmly. "Marcus and Victoria think they can destroy me and take everything. But they're wrong. I'm going to expose them, get my vineyard back, and make sure they pay for what they've done." Diego smiled. "Then you'll need help. And I'm offering mine." "Why would you risk yourself for me?" Elena asked. "Because 5 years ago, no one helped my family. No one investigated properly. No one cared enough to find the truth. Maybe I can't get justice for my parents and sister, but I can help you get justice for yourself." Elena reached across the table and took Diego's hand. "Thank you." As they sat there, holding hands across the kitchen table, Elena felt something she hadn't felt since before discovering Marcus's betrayal. Hope. She wasn't alone anymore. She had an ally. And together, they would make Marcus and Victoria pay for their crimes. Outside, the moon rose over the partially burned vineyard. The remaining vines swayed in the breeze, strong and resilient. Just like Elena. The battle was just beginning, but Elena Martinez was ready to fight. Part 2, Seeds of Vengeance, 2,000 words. Gathering evidence. The morning sun rose over the vineyard, but Elena had barely slept. She sat at her computer going through 5 years of financial records. If Marcus and Victoria had been planning this for months, there had to be traces. Money moved. Documents changed. Something she had missed. Diego arrived at 7 in the morning with coffee and breakfast. "You look terrible," he said gently. "Thank you for your honesty," Elena replied with a tired smile. "I've been looking through everything. There has to be proof." Diego sat beside her. "Tell me what you've found." Elena pointed at her screen. 3 months ago, Victoria transferred money from our business account to a private account. She said it was for expanding distribution. But look, the money went to a company called Westwood Holdings. "And that matters because?" Diego asked. "Because I looked up Westwood Holdings. Marcus owns it. Victoria has been secretly funneling money from our vineyard to Marcus's company." Diego leaned closer to the screen. "That's embezzlement. That's a crime." "But I need more," Elena said. "I need to prove they set the fire. I need to prove Marcus tricked me into signing those papers. Right now, all I have is financial records that might not hold up in court." Diego's dark past. Diego was quiet for a moment. "Elena, there's something I need to tell you. Something about my family's fire." Elena turned to look at him. The pain in his eyes made her heart ache. "For 5 years I've been investigating on my own," Diego said. "The man who threatened my father was named Robert Chun. He wanted to buy my father's restaurant property. When my father refused, the threat started. Then the fire happened." "Chun." Elena's eyes widened. "Is he related to Victoria?" "Her uncle," Diego confirmed. "I didn't make the connection until I looked into Victoria's background yesterday. Robert Chun was arrested 2 years ago for arson in another case. He's in prison now. But he taught Victoria everything about insurance fraud and how to make fires look accidental." Elena felt cold. So Victoria learned from her uncle how to burn buildings. "It's possible," Diego said. "But here's the thing, Elena. I've been obsessed with revenge for 5 years. I wanted to hurt the man who hurt my family. That obsession almost destroyed me. I don't want that for you. What are you saying? Elena asked. I'm saying be careful. The line between justice and revenge is thin. I crossed it once and it took me a long time to find my way back. We need to do this the right way. Legal. Clean. So they go to prison, not you. Elena understood his warning. But the anger inside her was hot and strong. Marcus and Victoria had destroyed her life. They deserved to suffer. Victoria's guilt. Across town, Victoria sat in her expensive apartment, staring at her phone. She had tried to call Marcus 5 times, but he wasn't answering. Ever since the fire, he had been distant and cold. Victoria had loved Marcus for years. When she first met him at a business event, she fell for him instantly. But he was already with Elena. So Victoria waited, became Elena's friend, invested in the vineyard, all while hoping Marcus would notice her. When Marcus finally approached her 8 months ago, Victoria thought her dreams had come true. He said he loved her. He said they would be together after taking the vineyard. He promised they would start a new life. But now Victoria was seeing the truth. Marcus didn't love her. He loved money. He used people. And Victoria had betrayed her best friend for a man who saw her as just another tool. The fire made everything worse. Victoria hadn't known Marcus was planning that. When she found out, she was horrified. We could have killed someone, she had screamed at him. But we didn't, Marcus said coldly. And now Elena will be desperate enough to sell quickly. Everything is working perfectly. Victoria looked at herself in the mirror. Who had she become? Her mother always taught her to be kind and honest. Now she was a thief and an accomplice to arson. Her phone rang. It was Marcus. We need to meet, he said without greeting. I found a buyer willing to pay $25 million for the entire property. We move forward next week. Marcus, wait. Maybe we should. Should what, Victoria? Get cold feet? It's too late for that. You're in this as deep as I am. If I go down, you go down. Remember that. He hung up. Victoria dropped her phone and started crying. She had made a terrible mistake, and she didn't know how to fix it. The plan takes shape. Elena and Diego spent the next 2 weeks gathering evidence. They interviewed workers who had seen Marcus and Victoria together months before Elena discovered the affair. They found more financial records showing money being stolen. They even found emails where Victoria discussed the vineyard acquisition plan with Marcus. But they still needed proof of the arson. There has to be security footage, Diego said one evening. Your vineyard must have cameras. We do, Elena said. But the storage building fire destroyed the main server. All the footage from that night was lost. Diego thought for a moment. What about neighboring properties? Anyone with cameras pointing toward your vineyard? Elena's eyes lit up. The Richards. They have a house on the hill overlooking my property. They installed security cameras last year because of break-ins. The next day, Elena visited her neighbors, the Richards family. Mr. Richards was an elderly man who had known Elena's grandfather. Elena, dear, I'm so sorry about the fire, he said, welcoming her inside. Your grandfather would be heartbroken. Mr. Richards, I need your help, Elena said. Do your security cameras cover any part of my vineyard? Let me check, he said, taking her to his security room. They reviewed footage from the night of the fire. At first they saw nothing unusual. Then at 1:30 in the morning, a figure appeared on camera. The person was wearing dark clothes and moved quickly toward the storage building. 15 minutes later, the same figure ran away just before the flames started. Can you zoom in? Diego asked. Mr. Richards enhanced the image. The figure's face was partially visible. It was Marcus. Elena felt her heart pound. That's him. That's the proof we need. The court hearing. 3 days later, Elena faced Marcus and Victoria in court. Her lawyer had filed an emergency motion to freeze all vineyard assets and challenge the ownership documents Marcus claimed gave him control. Marcus arrived in an expensive suit, looking confident. Victoria sat beside him, but Elena noticed she wouldn't make eye contact. The judge reviewed the evidence. Elena's lawyer presented the video footage showing Marcus at the vineyard the night of the fire. He showed financial records proving Victoria had embezzled money. He explained how Marcus had tricked Elena into signing papers she didn't understand. Marcus's lawyer fought back. "Your Honor, this is all circumstantial. The video is unclear. The financial transfers were legitimate business expenses. And my client was engaged to Ms. Martinez. It's natural for them to share business decisions." The judge looked serious. "I'm concerned about the video evidence showing Mr. Wellington at the vineyard the night of a suspicious fire. However, I cannot make a final ruling today. I'm ordering a full investigation by the district attorney. In the meantime, all vineyard assets are frozen. No sales, transfers, or major decisions can be made without court approval." Marcus's face turned red with anger. "This is ridiculous. Mr. Wellington," the judge said sternly, "I suggest you control yourself in my courtroom." Outside the courthouse, Marcus grabbed Victoria's arm roughly. "This is your fault. If you hadn't been so obvious with the money transfers." "My fault?" Victoria pulled away. "You're the one who set the fire. You promised no one would get hurt. You promised we would just scare her into selling." Elena and Diego watched from across the street. "She's breaking," Diego observed. "Victoria is starting to crack." "Maybe we can use that," Elena said thoughtfully. "The trap is set." That evening, Elena did something risky. She called Victoria. "We need to talk," Elena said when Victoria answered. "Just you and me. No lawyers, no Marcus. Please." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "Why would I talk to you?" "Because I know you didn't want any of this to happen," Elena said gently. "I know Marcus manipulated you just like he manipulated me. And I know you're scared about what comes next." Victoria started crying. "Elena, I'm so sorry. I never meant." "Meet me at the old cafe where we used to study together," Elena interrupted. "Tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon. Come alone. Please." The next day, Victoria arrived at the cafe looking tired and afraid. Elena was already there with Diego sitting at a nearby table, watching. "Thank you for coming," Elena said as Victoria sat down. "I don't know why I'm here," Victoria admitted. "I betrayed you. You should hate me." "I do hate what you did," Elena said honestly. "But I also remember the Victoria who was my friend. The girl who stayed up all night helping me study. The woman who cried at my grandfather's funeral. What happened to her?" Victoria wiped her tears. "I fell in love with the wrong man. And I made terrible choices because of it. Marcus is going to let you take the fall for everything," Elena said. "You know that, right? He's already blaming you in court. When the police arrest him for arson, he'll say you planned everything." Victoria looked shocked. "He wouldn't." "He already is." Elena showed her phone, playing a secret recording. It was from yesterday when Marcus was talking to his lawyer, not knowing Elena's lawyer was listening through a door. Marcus's voice was clear. "If they arrest anyone, make sure it's Victoria. She was the business partner. She had access to everything. She can take the blame." Victoria's face went white. "Oh my God. He really doesn't care about me at all." "No, he doesn't," Elena said. "But I'm offering you a choice. You can go down with him, or you can help me put him in prison and maybe save yourself. What do you want me to do?" Victoria asked. Elena leaned forward. "I want you to wear a wire and get him to confess to setting the fire. Do that, and I'll ask the district attorney to go easy on you. You'll still face charges for embezzlement, but maybe you'll avoid prison." Victoria thought about it for a long time. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, I'll do it. But not for me. For the friendship we used to have. I owe you that much." The confession. The next evening, Victoria met Marcus at his apartment. She wore a small recording device hidden in her necklace. Police were parked outside listening. "We need to talk about the court case," Victoria said nervously. Marcus poured himself whiskey. "What about it?" "My lawyer says it's fine." "Marcus, they have video of you at the vineyard the night of the fire," Victoria said. Marcus's face changed. For the first time he looked worried. "That video doesn't prove anything." "It proves you were there," Victoria pressed. "Why were you there? Did you set the fire?" "Keep your voice down," Marcus hissed. "I need to know the truth," Victoria said, tears in her eyes. "Did you burn Elena's storage building?" Because if you did, we're both going to prison. Marcus looked at her with cold eyes. You want the truth? Fine. Yes, I set the fire. It was easy. A simple timing device I bought online. I set it for 2 in the morning, knowing Elena would be asleep. The building burned exactly as planned. But why? Victoria cried. We were going to get the vineyard anyway. Because I wanted her broken, Marcus said viciously. I wanted Elena so desperate that she would sell for pennies just to get away from the pain. That fire was going to be the first of many. I was going to burn section after section until she had nothing left. You're a monster, Victoria whispered. I'm practical, Marcus corrected. And you're a fool if you think you're innocent in this. You embezzled money. You helped me plan everything. You're just as guilty as I am. Maybe I am, Victoria said quietly. But at least I'm going to do one thing right. She pulled out her necklace, showing the recording device. Marcus's face went pale. You recorded me? The apartment door burst open. Police rushed in, led by Detective Sarah Morrison. Marcus Wellington, you're under arrest for arson, conspiracy to commit fraud and attempted murder, the detective said, reading his rights. Marcus fought as they handcuffed him, screaming and cursing. He looked at Victoria with pure hatred. You'll pay for this. I'll make sure you rot in prison. Maybe I will, Victoria said sadly. But at least you'll be there too. As the police took Marcus away, Elena emerged from the hallway where she had been watching. Victoria turned to her, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, Victoria whispered. For everything. Elena looked at the woman who had been her best friend and worst enemy. Sorry doesn't fix what you broke. But thank you for doing the right thing at the end. Diego put his hand on Elena's shoulder as they watched the police cars drive away with Marcus inside. It's over, he said gently. No, Elena corrected. It's just beginning. Part 3, Harvest of Forgiveness, 2,000 words. The Harvest Festival. 6 months had passed since Marcus's arrest. Summer had turned to fall, and the vineyard was preparing for its annual Harvest Festival. This festival was Elena's chance to show the world that she had survived and rebuilt. The burned sections of the vineyard had been replanted. New vines were growing, young but healthy. The storage building had been reconstructed, bigger and better than before. And thanks to the publicity from the trial, people were more interested in Martinez vineyard wine than ever before. Elena stood on a stage overlooking hundreds of visitors. Families walked through the vines, tasting wine, eating food and enjoying live music. It was everything Elena had dreamed of. Thank you all for coming, Elena said into the microphone. This past year has been the most difficult of my life. I faced betrayal, destruction, and moments when I wanted to give up. But I learned that strength doesn't come from never falling down. It comes from getting back up every single time. The crowd applauded. Diego stood at the side of the stage, watching her with pride in his eyes. I also learned that revenge is poison, Elena continued. When someone hurts you, it's natural to want to hurt them back. But revenge doesn't heal wounds, creates new ones. Justice is different. Justice is about truth, accountability, and making sure the same harm doesn't happen to others. That's what I fought for. Not revenge. Justice. More applause. Elena saw Victoria standing in the back of the crowd, half hidden behind a tree. Their eyes met and Victoria gave a small sad smile. Marcus's trial. The trial had been quick. With Victoria's recorded confession and the security footage, Marcus had no defense. He was found guilty of arson, conspiracy, fraud, and embezzlement. The judge sentenced him to 15 years in prison. Elena attended the sentencing. She needed to see it with her own eyes. Marcus looked different. Thinner. Older. The confident man who had once charmed her was gone, replaced by someone bitter and defeated. Before the judge took him away, Marcus looked at Elena. I hope you're happy, he said coldly. I'm not happy, Elena replied honestly. I'm just relieved that justice was served. Justice? Marcus laughed bitterly. You destroyed my life. No, Marcus, Elena said firmly. You destroyed your own life with your choices. I just made sure you faced the consequences. As guards led him away, Elena felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She didn't feel joy at seeing him in prison. She didn't feel the satisfaction she thought revenge would bring. She just felt free. Victoria's redemption. Victoria's situation was more complicated. She had helped catch Marcus, and that counted in her favor. The district attorney offered her a deal. She would plead guilty to embezzlement, pay back the money she stole with interest, serve 2 years of probation, and perform 1,000 hours of community service. Victoria accepted immediately. She sold her expensive apartment and her car to pay back the money. She moved into a small studio and got a job as a bookkeeper. She was starting over from nothing. One afternoon, 3 months after the festival, Victoria appeared at Elena's vineyard. She looked nervous. "I know you probably don't want to see me," Victoria said. "But I had to come. I finished paying back the money